everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. So before I jump into the meat of the talk, could I get a quick show of hands just to get a sense of like how many of you all are running a SaaS business in the 10 to 25K a month range? Cool. What about sub 10? Awesome. And then like north of 100, we'll say. Sweet, awesome. So quick bio. So I'm Justin Mares. I co-authored a book that some of you may have heard of called Traction. In that book, we basically talked about how we saw most startups failing, not because they couldn't build a good product, but because they didn't know how to get traction. And so we introduced something that we called the Bullseye Framework, which was a multi-step process to figure out like what traction channels, what is gonna work for you to grow your business. So outside of Traction, I was also the former director of revenue for Exceptional Software. So in 2013, we were acquired by Rackspace for north of $10 million. It was a totally bootstrapped software business. We basically bought 3 different software companies, combined them into a portfolio, and then grew that portfolio from about 40K to about 250K in MRR at the time we sold it. And now I am the co-founder of a business called Fomo. So also throughout the talk, feel free to tweet at me. I'm at JWMares on Twitter. I have lots of different materials and things that I would be happy to share with you that I'll mention as we go through this. So the Fomo Story. If you check it out, use FOMO.com. It's a social proof app that boosts conversion rates. So what does that mean? So if you see right here, FOMO is this little notification that you may have noticed on some e-com sites, on hotels.com, some of these other sites that say, someone took this action this time ago. It's a way, and in this case you can see, someone bought this product about 5 hours ago. Now what that does is it really drives up your conversion rate because it makes your website kind of come alive. Like you visit the site and you're no longer going, oh, this is a site that I have no idea if anyone uses it, buys it, whatever. And so when I saw that tool, I thought it was pretty incredible. Before we rebranded it to Fomo, it was an app on Shopify called Notify. Now I was doing about 18K a month, and so my co-founder and I, Ryan, we approached the owner. We were looking at moving my e-commerce business off of Shopify and just said, hey, this tool has really, really worked for us. Are you guys planning on building any other integrations? Are you porting it over to Magento or any of these things? And after an extended conversation, basically found out that the founder was recently married, wanted to take a year to travel the world, and didn't want to really deal with the hassles of building and growing his software business. I mean, he had been in it for 2.5 years and was just kind of burned out. And so we ended up buying the business, which I would love to talk about if any of you guys have questions. We seller financed it, did it all with our own money, and did a couple other interesting things that might be helpful for some of you looking at doing the same thing, and basically rebranded it to Fomo. So this is the cartoon version of the team that works on Fomo today. So we bought it, and like I said, we did it after seeing this massive conversion boost after installing it on Kettle and Fire, which is my other e-com company. And so we saw conversions go up roughly 20%, which for us was a really meaningful and material lift in revenue. And so that's why we kind of went after it. Now, another thing that we saw was, Notify was kind of a single app written in PHP. It was terrible. The guy was kind of a self-taught developer, was not super strong technically, and he just had it as a Shopify app. We saw that there was the potential to apply this kind of idea, this social proof technology, to multiple different kinds of websites, platforms. Like, why is it that this should only exist on Shopify when you could also do the same thing on your blog, where you say, this person just subscribed, this person just purchased, this person just read this article. It's like a really low, not intrusive way to expose information and other things going on your website to your website visitors. And so we saw that there was this huge potential to build a platform and create a new brand. And so outside of 4Xing the business, I want to talk about what we did materially in the first 18 months to grow the business like we did. So day one, the common wisdom and what a lot of people talk about is raise prices. I mean, how many of you guys have raised your prices in the last 12 months even? Yeah, awesome. So that was a big one for us. You hear all of these things, and still, even though Silicon Valley investors, advisors, all of these other entrepreneurs are talking about you should probably raise your prices, especially as you're investing in growing the business, building new features, doing all of this, so many people still don't do it. I think that people feel like they need to give users a good deal, and if they raise prices, they're somehow hurting the people that are supporting their lifestyles, their livelihoods. I tend to think that's not true. I mean, we think that we still need to give users a good deal. We want people to be ecstatic that they're a Fomo customer. We want them to think it's such a no-brainer to use us, but we still raise prices. And the reason is because as someone signs up, obviously, we're increasing the amount of value that we're giving them. So when we bought the business, they charged about $15 a month flat. So we did two very simple things. We raised the bottom tier, which as a Shopify app was tremendously helpful because you get a lot of tire kickers who are signing up for Shopify, they try your app, they get 10 visits to their website, and they say, your app didn't work and it didn't drive me any sales. And you're like, well, and then they leave a 1-star review, which actually hurts you. And so we found that raising our prices, it increased the bar and the quality of customers that came in the door. And then we also added multiple tiers. It's such a no-brainer, but the guy previously had businesses that were doing $2 million a month on Shopify that were paying him the same $14.99 as someone that was doing $1,000 a month. And so it was just a very clear thing of like, okay, if we build good, if we improve a couple features and introduce pricing tiers, we're gonna easily double the business. The other thing that I thought was interesting is when we did this, we didn't actually see a conversion decrease. So what we did see was we saw a few people that would churn or like sign-ups dipped just slightly, but for the total number of people that ended up staying with us after a 30-day cycle, we saw basically no difference. So what that meant in my mind is that we were seeing far fewer tire kickers and far fewer people that were signing up for the first time, trying the software, and who maybe it wasn't a good fit for, and yet we still had just as many real customers with real businesses that wanted to use our tool as before. So after that, raise prices, literally we did that on day one. It was like, okay, we know what's gonna happen. Day two, we optimized the Shopify listing. The Shopify listing was the biggest source of revenue for the business. And so what we did is we realized that they had about 20 Shopify reviews at the time, 25 I think. And if we could ramp that up, we would rank more highly in Shopify. We basically said, like, what can we do to increase the likelihood that someone signs up? And so we sent this email to everyone that installed or had been using the app. And I want to call out two things here. We found that this email converted so well and started so many good conversations. It got us a ton of reviews. But basically what we said is, hey, thanks so much for using Notify. We've spent a ton of time building this. So we're working hard on this. I'm a real person, and I super appreciate the fact that you installed our software and gave us a shot. And then we just said, here's a big favor. If you like Notify, can you take 30 seconds to help me grow my little business? And that line, when we added the help me grow my little business, did tremendously well for us. Because people, really, they install these tools and they often don't know the person or the people behind these things. And if you say, hey, I've spent a lot of time on this, it's a tiny business, it's me working on it, can you just do me like a big favor and help out for a couple seconds? We found people were so responsive and really, really wanted to help, which was awesome. So, and then at the end, of course, we said, if you have any feature ideas, let me know. We're gonna add a bunch of stuff to the app over the next few months. So you can see that when we started, it was 25 apps or 25 reviews. Now we have over 160 reviews, and that has catapulted us to the top of the Shopify rankings. It's drastically improved our social proof, which is great because it drives more installs, Shopify is now excited to promote us and talk about us as a partner and do all these kinds of things. We also, have any of you used Capterra before? Cool. That's another tool that we've been surprised by how well it's worked, but it's basically a third-party tool where people can rate how their different software tools, like what they think of them. And so we found that improving and getting good reviews on Capterra has actually been really helpful and a really useful way to drive a bunch of new signups. So that was kind of day two. Implement that email campaign, set up the drip. We got 50 new reviews. So the next thing outside of the reviews is we also optimized the actual Shopify listing. Now, if you see this is what the listing looked like before. Not a lot of callouts. I mean, new to the Shopify store is not a benefit. The copy's not very good. It's not really telling you exactly what it does. It's not giving you any social proof. There's a lot of issues with this listing. And because this Shopify listing was driving so much of our traffic and so much of our revenue, we knew that it was a key conversion point that we had to optimize. So we'd spend time optimizing it. We spent we did a full rewrite in a day, hired a copywriter, talked to our customers, sent them this new description and said, what do you think of this? Like, what do you think of this description versus the previous? Can we get a testimonial? We interviewed one of our customers, which you can see, Bariatric Pal, and included a bunch of different statistics and things that they'd gotten since installing Fomo. And as a result of that, increased our daily installs by 15%. So, now we've had a bunch of installs and drastically drove that up. So after the first kind of easy wins for us, which were raise pricing, improve the App Store listing, get more reviews, it was kind of time to focus on the harder nitty-gritty stuff. And so for us, this was churn. When we bought the business, it was churning. Granted, it's a Shopify app, but churn was about 19%. And so that meant that if we had our Shopify app delisted, we'd basically be out of business in 5 months. So that's obviously not ideal. I mean, do any of you guys have churn in that range? I hope not. Awesome. Didn't see many hands, which is great. So when we bought the business, again, it is a Shopify app, so it's easier to uninstall. It's one click. A lot of people are kicking tires. But still, this was clearly the most important and the biggest thing that we had to solve. So our first order of business is figure out why. Why is this happening? Why are people churning? And so we set up Mixpanel. Again, this is a thing that the previous founder hadn't done. It was hugely beneficial to our business. Just set up a bunch of different trigger emails. So someone took one action and they got an email saying, hey, thank you for doing this. Did you know we have this feature? Or we started sending weekly reports, which the previous owner hadn't done, that said, here's how much your conversion rate went up thanks to having Fomo installed in the 7 days you've had it installed. Here's how much you've made in extra revenue from people that have clicked on Fomo notifications and then ended up buying something. And these were all just no-brainers that we allowed our customers to, for the first time, to finally see you install Fomo and you make more money. Closing that loop was tremendously beneficial. And we also got an incredible amount of feedback from these emails that we set up from Mixpanel. The other thing we did is we tried to initiate as many customer conversations as we could. So this is one of my favorite emails / software hacks. I would highly recommend it. So what we did is basically 5 days into someone's trial, we would send them an email from Ryan, the founder, and copy our support guy, Arnold. So it would just say, you'd get an email as a customer, you get an email in your inbox that just says, intro, Chris and Arnold, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, you can read the email here, but you're looped in with our head of customer support and our product manager. And so you just are saying hey, thank you for signing up for Fomo. If you have any issues, here's a guy, here's his contact info. You're already connected with him. Let us know and we'll fix it right away. And this by far has been the best email to initiate conversations that I've ever seen. It blows other lifecycle marketing and Mixpanel emails and everything else we've done just totally out of the water. And we've gotten good feedback from marketers like Kular, who said that the intro email tactic is a good one that he hasn't seen before, and it's worked really well. The other thing we did is, unlike the previous owner, who was one guy, didn't really want to work that hard, just because he was focused on other things. He just wasn't giving customers the support, the feature development, everything that they kind of wanted and needed in the platform. And so we focused on hiring. So our first hire was a support guy who could help basically fix and turn around customer issues our goal was 24 hours or less. And we now have 3 full-time customer support people. They're fantastic and have just been a tremendous boon to the business. Not only have they increased customer lifetime value, but they also get all of these conversations. They get a pulse and an understanding of what our customers want. Like, what problems do they have? What integrations do they want? What can we do to solve more problems for them? All have been tremendously helpful. And so 3 months after going through those things that I told you about, we saw our churn go from 19% to 8%. And now, it's 18 months later, it's under 7, which is great. So, some months have 5, some months 2, some months 8, but it averages about just under 7 for the last couple months, which for a Shopify app is tremendous. Like, we're incredibly excited about this. So that's been a huge lever. The next lever that it surprised me with how important it was and how beneficial it's been to our growth has been building integrations. So as soon as we bought the app, it was only on Shopify and you couldn't use it anywhere else. So we said, okay, we're going to build a standalone platform so that with a snippet of JavaScript, you can install it on your site. Outside of that, though, we're also going to invest in building integrations like on BigCommerce, like on a bunch of these other e-com and other platforms where people can install Fomo, pay for it, and get the value from it without having to know a single line of code. How many of you guys have thought about doing a large scale kind of integration build out as a way to acquire new customers? Cool. So we found that this was one of the best levers for our business. When we bought the business, it was 100% Shopify. Today, Shopify accounts for less than 40% of our revenue. And this is all driven by people installing it on their own, going through integrations, and doing things like this. This was when we bought the business. This was 45 days after we launched the BigCommerce integration. It cost us $1,500, and in the first 45 days we had that live, we made about $1,000. And it's just been paying dividends ever since. Now BigCommerce, I believe, is in the $8,000 to $9,000 a month range for that integration. Since we saw that work so well, we've really doubled down on this integration strategy. So we do a couple of things here. Not only do we build these integrations so that you can see, when someone checks out, does something on Zapier, signs up for your email list on ConvertKit, leaves a review on Google, whatever. We have all of these integrations, and these are awesome not only from a make money and make revenue standpoint, but also from a marketing standpoint. If you look at the Zapier customer list, we did an integration with them, and we said, hey, if we build something cool that your customers want, will you guys do a case study? Will you do an email blast about us? Will you do a blog post about us? And that's a company that spent years and tons of money and tons of time building up this massive customer base and this massive audience. And just by building an integration, we can get access to those people and kind of tell them this is what FOMO is, this is how it helps, this is why it's great. For us, we've almost started viewing these integrations as kind of a marketing expense, where we say, for a couple weeks of development time, we're going to work with a company that's going to send out an email blast to tens of thousands of people. That's pretty high ROI. I mean, even if some of them may not have a use for the integration on its own, a lot of them will come and sign up for the product outside. We've had plenty of customers say, oh, I heard about you from this integration, from this blog post, from this email, whatever. So outside of the integrations and really figuring out that was a channel that was worth it for us and doubling down on that and doing over 50 integrations in the last 18 months, we've also been super opportunistic. So from talking to customers, we've seen that they want to kind of see that tightly coupled loop between having FOMO installed and making more money, like I mentioned earlier. And so this is one of the first features that we built, is we said, here's how many notifications you showed. Here's how many people clicked on them. Here's how many conversions you got. And here's how much you made in terms of revenue from people that clicked a notification and bought a product that they were on a product page that was different than the thing they were looking at. So kind of like an incremental sale. And so we built this dashboard, so as soon as you log in, this is one of the first things you see. Here's the hard ROI. And compared to that, I mean, if you're looking at a chart that says you made $18,000 in the last 30 days, you're probably not going to cancel your $199 a month subscription. So we've really, really hammered on building this kind of value. We also have been opportunistic in other ways. So we realized that there's this kind of low-hanging fruit and a ton of options available in the buying small software company's space. And so we got relatively good at this point, and we're relatively experienced at finding, negotiating, and buying tiny companies. So to date, we've now acquired several more Shopify apps, including 2 small competitors. We just fold them into our platform. We have a standard agreement. We have a standard way that we structure these deals. We opportunistically bought a website called Built with Shopify. It was a Shopify tools website that said, here are all the tools that if you are building a Shopify site, you should consider using. It got about 30,000 uniques a month, but it's exactly the customer we want. Anyone who's going on a website to read about like what tool should I put on my Shopify store, that's someone that we want to talk to. So we bought the site, we redesigned it, we got their email list, and like we've included Fomo as one of the featured apps on that site, as you might imagine. So that's been amazing. We also kind of align goals. So one of our goals is like, we want to help marketers be more honest and be more transparent. So we want people to be able to say, I install Fomo, and all of a sudden the entire world can see what's happening on my website. So you don't have to lie, you don't have to make up numbers, you don't have to say things that people might be skeptical of. You can see in real time how many people are buying something, how are they using it, what are your users doing. And so we built this tool that pulls in customer reviews and then auto-publishes it on the testimonials page on our website. Super simple tool, just did it using Blockspring and Google Sheets, but that has gotten also a ton of good customer feedback. We've also built, thanks to customer response, they said, the next thing I want to do is I want to know how I can do more with Fomo. And so we said, great, so we'll build you a smart dashboard that says, if you do these things, here's what you're likely to get. And so you can see here, it says, here are 4 different tips. Like if you do this, it will likely increase your impressions to click ratio up to 21%. You do this, and it'll improve X, Y, or Z by a certain amount. And we pulled that all together. We did a bunch of kind of like data deep dive and said, this is what's going to work for you based on what we've seen from our other customers. So basically making our tool more valuable and leveraging our customers' data to help them do their jobs better. And so after all of that, this is what our graph has looked like. So we bought the company in April of 2016. And this has been kind of the growth story since then. We've more than 4x the business. We're on track to do about 100K in MRR this month. We have a completely bootstrapped. Ryan and I used our own personal capital to buy the business and have invested in that sense. And it's been a tremendous kind of story of growth so far. But one thing I want to point out is I think that it's somewhat dishonest for me to get up here and say this was the successful thing and here I'm so great or whatever. Like there were multiple times in this journey, like if you look sort of the latter half of 2016 or even last month where I was like, fuck, like it's done, it's tapped out, like it's shrinking, it's all kind of falling apart. And it's super easy to just look at the graph overall and say, we went 20 to 80 in 18 months, like awesome. And it's fantastic, but it's been a lot of work and there've been a lot of doubts and questions kind of along the way. And so what I've found is at every step and every point where we're seeing a flat line, we're seeing a decline, or just kind of doubting like what we were doing, we just buckled down as a team and figured out, okay, what do we need to do? Like what's one more feature that we can ship to make one customer happy? What's one customer acquisition test we can run to try and materially jump the business? And so far, that's been working really well. So thank you so much. Would love to hear questions, and check out Fomo at usefomo.com.
All right, who has a question for Justin?
How did you decide to hire 3 full-time customer service reps? And did you consider any alternatives? Looking at the cartoon team, it seems like a significant decision.
Yeah, so it was a significant decision. We did not do it from day one. So we hired our first hire was a customer support person. And then as the support request just kind of scaled up, we saw that the value was there. Like we tracked the number of people that our support customer had talked to and either prevented from churning or upsold to a higher plan. And just by tracking that, we were like, okay, this pays for itself 100 times over. And so basically it said that anytime one of our support guys are not able to close a ticket or get to someone in a 24-hour period, like we're going to hire someone else because this is just so high ROI for us.
Yeah, so did you hire any software developers at all? Because you guys did a ton of integrations. You talked about hiring support crew. Or was it you and your co-founder that did all the development?
Yeah, so it was my co-founder, and then we hired a dev shop that we worked with pretty closely for the first 6 months. Yeah, and that was again, like Ryan and I investing our own money and taking every dollar of revenue from Fomo and putting it towards like dev just so that it could go faster.
Can you share more about how you approach the competitors that you acquired?
Sure, yeah, great question. I feel like one of our biggest learnings from this whole thing has been just how to find and acquire these businesses. Like Fomo is a great case study of that. And so we went through the acquisition process with Fomo, learned a lot, and then effectively we saw just how useful it was to acquire and approach these kind of small competitors that in most cases are solo developers, have been working on the thing for less than, call it 2 years, and are probably doing single-digit thousands a month. And so I think that there's this kind of inflection point where competitors or someone launches an app, they have this grand vision of success, and then after a year and a half, they kind of realize that they either don't understand what they're doing or it's just not going the way they hoped. And so we found that on the day that we decided to do this, we just emailed 20 of our competitors that had similar apps on the App Store and said, hey, we're interested in bringing you into the Fomo network, like potentially acquiring your business. Are you open at all? And we got, I think more than half of them said yes. Some of them didn't work on price, but it was pretty easy. It was just very straightforward. Hey, we're willing to buy you. Are you interested in selling? And would you be willing to just kind of sell it, help us integrate, and then walk away? And for a much larger number than I thought, we're very open to that.
All right, on your advice, broad kind of blanket statement of raise prices that we all know and love.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know how exactly did you come to that magic number? Because I mean, at some point you're pricing your target market out and you're gonna lose money if you raise your prices too much. And I know we could have a whole conference on pricing on its own. Maybe we can launch a mega thread on Slack if anybody else has thoughts. But.
Totally. Yeah, it's a good question. So I still don't know that it is the magic number. It's one that we tested it and it worked really well. So we basically, we sent an email to existing customers where we had one landing page that was $29, $79, $199, I think, and then one that was slightly higher. And we sent them both an offer to say, like, get a one-time discount to upgrade a plan. And we found that many more people kind of opted for the $29.99 sweet spot. Like that was where our Shopify customer wanted to go. Now we're seeing on the opposite, now that Shopify is way less of our revenue, we're seeing people are way more willing to pay higher prices. And so I kind of think of at this point, I kind of think about pricing as a onboarding path where like you just want to get someone in the door at a price that's not exorbitant, and then assuming they grow their business, which for us, many of our customers are startups, small businesses, and they're all kind of on a growth path. They're going to stick with us if we provide a good service for years to come. And so we want to have an entry price that's not too crazy, and then also have a really, really meaningful enterprise price that people can kind of scale into that is really material if we just land a couple of those. So that's how we think about it. I don't know that we have the magic formula nailed. No.
Did you grandfather existing customers? And if not, did you get any pushback?
Yes, we did grandfather existing customers for a year.
Do you have any tips for negotiating with integration partners in terms of trying to maximize the marketing impact of your integrations?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for us was we said like, here is what is in it for you. So for Zapier, we said, we're gonna bring all of these e-com customers and send an email to our 20,000 person list about how they should use Zapier. We'll build a custom flow and show them a really cool hack that we kind of came up with that they can do when they install Zapier. And so it was, here's what you'll get out of it. Like for the price of a blog post, you basically get exposure to potentially 20,000 e-commerce people, which is a market that Zapier cares about for us, or that Zapier cares about. And so that was kind of an easy sell. But in every case, we kind of had two phases. We had the first phase where we started approaching these people and saying, here's what's in it for you, here's like all the benefits you're gonna get, here's the cool thing that's gonna happen if you work with us. And then in the latter case, we've actually now moved to spending like a couple days building an integration, and then just sending the finished docs to the partner at the integration site, along with saying like, hey, we just built this integration, we did integrations with X, Y, and Z. Like, if you want us to do a blog post, we'll write it, we'll promote it, we'll put paid Facebook ads behind it, we'll send it to our email list, if you'll do the same. And like, that offer has been pretty much a no-brainer for a lot of our integration partners, because we've had partners say like, I've literally never had someone build an integration and then just tell me they've done it, and of course I'm gonna promote you. And so that's worked pretty well.
Hey, how are you differentiating yourself between your competitors? I've seen a lot of Fomo solutions in the marketplace. So when it comes to, are you just copying features, but how do you set yourself apart?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of probably our biggest competitor, so again, we started doing this about 2 years ago. One of our biggest competitors launched about 8 months ago. They just went through Y Combinator. They're raising a couple $1 million. At that point, there's not really a ton of, I think we have better features in some ways. We have a really strong team, but there's not really a ton that we can do in terms of feature differentiation. Like, we are trying to build features, they're kind of doing the same, and it's sort of a rat race. And so what we focus on is the actual experience of using the product. Like, if you have two matching products and one of them is super responsive, customer support is amazing, we'll build your integrations for you, we have a ton of happy customers, our product scales with you to millions of events per month. Like, we've built and architected the entire company and the entire product so that at no point in the customer journey are you unhappy with what we're doing. And so we've actually seen an uptick in signups. Like, I don't know, minus last month, if you saw the graph, but Proof basically started doing some very aggressive, Proof is our competitor, some very aggressive Facebook advertising just around and you can see that reflected because we got a ton of people that signed up for Proof, saw their product broke, didn't like their customer service, because they have all non-technical customer support people, which for a software product I think is insane. They just started coming over to us. And so that spike from roughly 75 to about 88, a lot of that was driven at a time when Proof was spending more than 6 figures a month on Facebook ads trying to get people to convert to their product. And we just got a huge tailwind from that. And so that's kind of how we think about it. I mean, I don't know what will happen in the end, but I suspect that they will help grow the market and make what we're trying to do more of a thing and a more recognized tool to have on your website than not. I mean, I kind of think like Drift and Intercom, they've kind of grown the market for another. Yeah, they're competitors, but that market is vastly bigger thanks to the two of them existing and talking about it and trying to build that. And because we're not trying to become the next Facebook, we're just trying to build a profitable business with customers that love us, that's gonna work more in our advantage. I don't know if it goes the other way for Proof. Like, if they're at our level or 500K a month, they might be in a hard spot. So we'll see.
It's me over here. All right, stand up. So how did you connect with the person at Zapier? And how did you have that conversation of getting the blog published?
Yeah, I believe we cold emailed them. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we just cold emailed their partner integrations or their partnerships person. That guy or woman's job literally is to build integrations and bring partners into the platform. And so it was pretty easy for us. That was not in the top 80% of hard cold emails that we've had to send.
Other than your Zapier, have you exposed an API like a REST API that larger customers might make their own integrations, or is Zapier the solution?
Yeah, so we found that a lot of our customers were not as technical. And so Zapier was a fantastic solution for them. We also do have an events API that we use for a lot of our larger customers. Like eBay just started onboarding and sending events to it. And we're going through that kind of onboarding cycle. So we definitely have one of those. And that's been a big win for many of our larger customers.
You mentioned needing a technical support team, and we're in a position now of needing to ramp up our support team. Curious if you could share any wisdom on sourcing and onboarding that kind of support team.
Yeah, it's a great question. So for us, we're like many of you, I suspect, we are bootstrapped and we're never like so cash heavy that we could hire a developer and put them on support. And so what we found is hiring people that recently graduated from dev boot camps has actually been a tremendous source of customer support hires. All of our support hires have been recently out of a dev boot camp, and the market has sort of caught on to the fact that dev boot camps don't make you a strong Facebook level engineer. And so a lot of these people are struggling to find work and still want to be in tech. And so for our guys, what we do is we hire them out of dev boot camps, kind of teach them the customer relations style that we care about. We put them through another development track called Launch Academy, which I believe it's called that. But basically it's this $2,500 a month technical course that my co-founder Ryan went through and said is amazing and loves it. So we put them through another sort of development training course and then have them answering tickets and just sitting next to Ryan or like assign them to a senior engineer and onboard them for a couple months. And that, though kind of a headache, has been tremendously useful and by far like the best thing we figured out on the hiring standpoint.
So you do that just to incentivize them to want to work with support?
Yeah, exactly. So we say like, you wanted to learn how to code, you're not good enough to actually build anything yet at a real company. And so we're gonna like invest in your learning so that you can get better, get experience building the product for others, make small feature updates and pushes, and then a year, 2 years after, we'll have gotten a ton of customer support help. We can onboard you into a full-time engineer, or you can go do your own thing. Either way, like everyone's happy.
You've talked about smaller Shopify stores as well as enterprise customers. Those are like two very different markets.
Yeah.
How do you think about them, and how do you sort of approach those two markets that are so very different?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we started just focused on Shopify stores because it was only a Shopify app, that was it. And so that has been our core kind of revenue engine that we've used to grow the business. And so since day one, that has just been kicking off cash that we've been reinvesting to the business. And we've used that kind of core set of smaller customers, 7,000 customers or whatever it is on Shopify now, to take that cash and invest in building an enterprise-ready product. And so that process took about 6 to 9 months. And as soon as we got a product that like large companies could install on their own site, it was enterprise-ready, it was enterprise-worthy, then we started seeing some larger companies have some inbound. That's when we started building out account executives, building out a salesperson. We just made our first marketing hire recently. So doing all of that kind of stuff that is gearing us up to go from now, hopefully I'll be back next year talking about how we went from like 100K to 500K or something like that, But it's a completely different ballgame from the standpoint of what you have to do internally as a team and what you have to do as a product to service the higher level customers. So we're gearing up for that.
All right, we have time for one more question. Any others? All right. Thank you so much, Justin.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.